Dinner time, 2 Kings 21. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hephzibah, and he did evil in the eyes of Jehovah, according to the abominations of the nations whom Jehovah disposed before the children of Israel. For he turned and built the high places, which Hizkiah his father had destroyed, and raised up slaughter places for Baal, and made an Asherah, as Ahab, sovereign of Israel, had done. And he bowed himself to all the hosts of the heavens, and served them. And he built slaughter places in the house of Jehovah, of which Jehovah had said, In Jerusalem I put my name. And he built slaughter places for all the hosts of the heavens in the 2 courtyards of the house of Jehovah. And he made his son pass through the fire, and practiced magic, and used divination, and consulted spiritists and mediums. He did much evil in the eyes of Jehovah to provoke him. And he placed a carved image of Asherah that he had made in the house, of which Jehovah had said to David and to Shelomo his son, In this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, I put my name forever. And no more shall I cause the feet of Israel to move from the soil which I gave their fathers, only if they guard to do according to all that I have commanded them, and according to all the Torah that my servant Moshe commanded them. And they did not obey, and Manasseh led them astray to do more evil than the nations whom Jehovah had destroyed before the children of Israel. And Jehovah spoke by his servants the prophets, saying, Because Manasseh, sovereign of Yehudah, has done these abominations, having done more evil than all the Amorites who were before him, and also made Yehudah sin with the idols. Therefore thus said Jehovah, Elohim of Israel, See, I am bringing such evil upon Jerusalem and Yehudah, that both ears of those who hear of it shall tingle. And I shall stretch over Jerusalem the measuring line of Shomeron, and the plummet of the house of Ahab, and shall wipe Jerusalem as one wipes a dish, wiping it and turning it upside down. And I shall forsake the remnant of my inheritance, and give them into the hand of their enemies, and they shall be for prey and for plunder to all their enemies, because they have done evil in my eyes, and have provoked me since the day their fathers came out of Mizraim, even to this day. And also Manasseh shed very much innocent blood, until he had filled Jerusalem from one end to another, besides his sin, with which he made Yehudah sin, in doing evil in the eyes of Jehovah. And the rest of the acts of Manasseh, and all that he did, and the sin that he committed, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yehudah? So Manasseh slept with his fathers, and was buried in the garden of his own house, in the garden of Uzzah, and his son Amon reigned in his place. Amon was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 2 years in Jerusalem. And the name of his mother was Meshullemeth, the daughter of Harutz of Yotibah. And he did evil in the eyes of Jehovah, as his father Manasseh had done, and walked in all the ways that his father had walked, and served the idols that his father had served, and bowed himself to them, and forsook Jehovah, Elohim of his fathers, and did not walk in the way of Jehovah. And the servants of Ammon conspired against him, and killed the sovereign in his own house. But the people of the land struck all those who had conspired against sovereign Ammon, and the people of the land set up his son Yoshiyahu to reign in his place. And the rest of the acts of Ammon which he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yehuda? And he was buried in his burial place in the garden of Uzzah, and his son Yoshiyahu reigned in his place. Yoshiyahu was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Yedidah, the daughter of Adiah of Botzkath. And he did what was right in the eyes of Jehovah, and walked in all the ways of his father David, and did not turn aside right or left. And it came to be in the 18th year of sovereign Yoshiyahu, that the sovereign sent Shaphan the scribe, son of Atzalyahu, son of Meshullam, to the house of Jehovah, saying, Go up to Hilkiyahu the high priest, and let him weigh the silver which has been brought into the house of Jehovah, which the doorkeepers have gathered from the people. And let them give it into the hand of those doing the work, who are overseers in the house of Jehovah. And let them give it to those who are in the house of Jehovah, doing the work, to strengthen the breach of the house. To carpenters and to builders and to stonemasons, and to buy timber and hewn stone to strengthen the house. However, let not the silver given into their hand be reckoned with them, for they are acting trustworthily. And Hilkiyahu the high priest said to Shaphan the scribe, I have found the book of the Torah in the house of Jehovah. And Hilkiah gave the book to Shaphan, and he read it. And Shaphan the scribe came to the sovereign, and brought word to the sovereign again, saying, Your servants have gathered the silver that was found in the house, and have given it into the hand of those who do the work, who oversee the house of Jehovah. And Shaphan the scribe informed the sovereign, saying, Hilkiah the priest has given me a book. And Shaphan read it before the sovereign. And it came to be, when the sovereign heard the words of the book of the Torah, that he tore his garments. And the sovereign commanded Hilkiah the priest, and Ahikam son of Shaphan, and Achbor son of Micaiah, and Shaphan the scribe, and Asaiah the servant of the sovereign, saying, Go inquire of Jehovah for me, for the people, and for all Yehudah, concerning the words of this book that has been found. For great is the wrath of Jehovah that is kindled against us, because our fathers have not obeyed the words of this book, to do according to all that is written concerning us. Then Hilkiyahu the priest, and Ahikam, and Achbor, and Shaphan, and Asaiah went to Huldah the prophetess, the wife of Shallum, son of Tikvah, son of Harhas, keeper of the wardrobe. Now she was dwelling in Jerusalem in the 2nd quarter, and they spoke with her. And she said to them, Thus said Jehovah, Elohim of Yisrael, say to the man who sent you to me, Thus said Jehovah, See, I am bringing evil on this place and on its inhabitants, all the words of the book which the sovereign of Yehudah has read, because they have forsaken me and burned incense to other mighty ones to provoke me with all the works of their hands. And so my wrath shall be kindled against this place and not be quenched. And the sovereign of Yehudah, who sent you to inquire of Jehovah, say this to him, Thus said Jehovah, Elohim of Yisrael, As for the words which you have heard, because your heart was tender, and you humbled yourself before Jehovah, when you heard what I spoke against this place and against its inhabitants, that they would become a ruin and a curse, and did tear your garments and wept before me, I also have heard, declares Jehovah. Therefore, see, I am gathering you to your fathers, and you shall be gathered to your burial site in peace, so that your eyes do not see all the evil I am bringing on this place. And they brought word to the sovereign. And the sovereign sent, And they gathered all the elders of Yehuda and Yerushalayim to him. And the sovereign went up to the house of Jehovah, with all the men of Yehuda, and all the inhabitants of Yerushalayim with him, and the priests and the prophets, and all the people, both small and great. And he read in their hearing all the words of the book of the covenant which had been found in the house of Jehovah. And the sovereign stood by the column and made a covenant before Jehovah to follow Jehovah and to guard his commands and his witnesses and his laws with all his heart and with all his being, to establish the words of this covenant that were written in this book. And all the people stood to the covenant. Then the sovereign commanded Hilkiyahu the high priest and the priest of the second order and the doorkeepers to bring out of the Hechal of Jehovah all the objects that were made for Baal and for Asherah and for all the host of the heavens. And he burned them outside Yerushalayim in the fields of Kidron, and took their ashes to Bethel. And he put down the black-robed priest, whom the sovereigns of Yehuda had appointed to burn incense on the high places in the cities of Yehuda, and in the places all around Yerushalayim, and those who burned incense to Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the constellations, and to all the hosts of heavens. And he brought out the Asherah from the house of Jehovah to the Wadi Kidron outside Yerushalayim, and burned it at the Wadi Kidron, and ground it to ashes, and threw its ashes on the burial sites of the sons of the people. And he broke down the house of the male cult prostitutes that were in the house of Jehovah, where the women wove tapestries for the Asherah. And he brought all the priests from the cities of Yehuda, and defiled the high places where the priest had burned incense, from Geba to Beersheba, and broke down the high places at the gates which were at the entrance of the gate of Yehoshua, the governor of the city, which were to the left of the city gate. However, the priests of the high places did not come up to the slaughter place of Jehovah in Yerushalayim, but they ate unleavened bread among their brothers. And he defiled Topheth, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, so that no man could make his son or his daughter pass through the fire to Molech. And he did away with the horses that the sovereigns of Yehuda had given to the sun, at the entrance of the house of Jehovah, by the room of Nathan-Melech the eunuch, that were in the court, and he burned the chariots of the sun with fire. And the slaughter places that were on the roof of the upper room of Ahaz, which the sovereigns of Yehuda had made, and the slaughter places which Manasseh had made in the two courtyards of the house of Jehovah, the sovereign broke down, and rushed from there, and threw their dust into the Wadi Kidron. And the sovereign defiled the high places that were before Yerushalayim, which were on the right hand of the mountain of destruction, which Shlomo, sovereign of Yisrael, built for Ashereth, the abomination of the Sidonians, and for Chemosh, the abomination of the Moabites, and for Milcom, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And he broke in pieces the pillars, and cut down the Asherim, and filled their places with the bones of men. And also the slaughter place that was at Bethel, and the high place which Jeroboam son of Nebat made, by which he made Yisrael sin, both the slaughter place and the high place he broke down. And he burned the high place to the ground, and ground it to dust, and burned the Asherah. And Yoshiyahu turned, and saw the burial sites that were there on the mountain. And he sent and took the bones out of the burial sites, and burned them on the slaughter place, and defiled it according to the word of Jehovah, which the man of Elohim proclaimed, who proclaimed these words. And he said, What tombstone is this that I see? And the men of the city said to him, It is the burial site of the man of Elohim who came from Yehuda, and proclaimed these matters which you have done against the slaughter place of Bethel. And he said, Let him alone, let no one move his bones. So they left his bones alone. with the bones of the prophet who came from Shomaron. And Yoshiyahu also took away all the houses of the high places that were in the cities of Shomaron, which the sovereign of Israel had made to provoke. And he did to them according to all the deeds he did in Bethel. And he slaughtered all the priests of the high places who were there, on the slaughter places, and burned men's bones on them, and went back to Jerusalem. And the sovereign commanded all the people, saying, Prepare the Pesach to Jehovah your Elohim, as it is written in this book of the covenant. For such a Pesach has not been prepared since the days of the rulers who ruled Israel, nor in all the days of the sovereigns of Israel and the sovereigns of Yehuda. But in the 18th year of sovereign Yoshiyahu, this Pesach was prepared before Jehovah in Jerusalem. And also Yoshiyahu put away those who consulted mediums and spiritists, and the household mighty ones and idols, and all the abominations that were seen in the land of Yehuda and in Jerusalem, in order to establish the words of the Torah, which were written in the book that Hilkiyahu the priest found in the house of Jehovah. And before him there was no sovereign like him, who turned back to Jehovah with all his heart, and with all his being, and with all his might, according to all the Torah of Moshe, and after him none rose up like him. However, Jehovah did not turn from the fierceness of his great wrath, with which his wrath burned against Yehuda, because of all the provocations with which Manasseh had provoked him. And Jehovah said, Even Yehuda I shall remove from my presence, as I have removed Israel, and I shall reject this city, Jerusalem, which I have chosen, and the house of which I said, My name is there. And the rest of the acts of Yoshiyahu and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yehuda? In his days Pharaoh Necho, sovereign of Mizraim, went up against the sovereign of Ashur to the river Euphrates. And sovereign Yoshiyahu went out to him, and he killed him at Megiddo when he saw him. And his servants conveyed his body in a chariot from Megiddo, and brought him to Jerusalem, and buried him in his own burial place. And the people of the land took Jehoahaz, son of Yoshiyahu, and anointed him, and set him up to reign in his father's place. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 new moons in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Yirmiyahu of Libnah. And he did evil in the eyes of Jehovah, according to all that his fathers did. And Pharaoh Necho imprisoned him at Riblah in the land of Hamath, to keep him from reigning in Jerusalem. And he imposed on the land a fine of 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. And Pharaoh Necho set up Eliakim, son of Yoshiyahu, to reign in place of his father Yoshiyahu, and changed his name to Jehoiakim. And Pharaoh took Jehoahaz and went to Mizraim, and he died there. And Jehoiakim gave the silver and gold to Pharaoh, only he taxed the land to give silver according to the mouth of Pharaoh. He exacted the silver and gold from the people of the land, from every one according to his assessment, to give it to Pharaoh Necho. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Zebidah, the daughter of Pedaiah of Ramah. And he did evil in the eyes of Jehovah, according to all that his fathers did. In the days of Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, came up, and Jehoiakim became his servant for 3 years, and he turned and rebelled against him. And Jehovah sent against him raiding bands of Kasdim, and raiding bands of Aram, and raiding bands of Moab, and raiding bands of the children of Ammon. And he sent them against Yehudah to destroy it, according to the word of Jehovah which he had spoken by his servants the prophets. Only at the mouth of Jehovah this came upon Yehudah, to remove them from his presence, because of the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he did, and also because of the innocent blood that he shed. For he filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, which Jehovah would not forgive. And the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and all that he did, are they not written in the books of the annals of the sovereigns of Yehudah? So Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, and Jehoiakim his son reigned in his place. And the sovereign of Mizraim did not come out of his land again, for the sovereign of Babel had taken all that belonged to the sovereign of Mizraim, from the Wadi of Mizraim to the river Euphrates. Jehoiakim was 18 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 new moons. And his mother's name was Nehushta, the daughter of Elnathan of Jerusalem. And he did evil in the eyes of Jehovah, according to all that his father did. At that time the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, came up against Jerusalem, and the city was besieged. And Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, came against the city, and his servants were besieging it. And Jehoiakim, sovereign of Yehudah, and his mother, and his servants, and his heads, and his eunuchs, went out of the sovereign of Babel. And the sovereign of Babel, in the 8th year of his reign, took him prisoner. And he took from there all the treasures of the house of Jehovah, and the treasures of the sovereign's house. And he cut in pieces all the objects of gold, which Shlomo, sovereign of Israel, had made in the Hechal of Jehovah, as Jehovah had said. And he exiled all Jerusalem, and all the officers, and all the mighty brave men, 10,000 exiles, and all the craftsmen and smiths. None remained except the poorest people of the land. And he exiled Jehoiakim to Babel. And the sovereign's mother, and the sovereign's wives, and his eunuchs, and the leading men of the land, he exiled from Jerusalem to Babel. And all the mighty brave men, 7,000, and craftsmen and smiths, 1,000, all who were strong and fit for battle, these the sovereign of Babel brought to Babel into exile. And the sovereign of Babel set up Mattaniah, Jehoiakim's uncle, to reign in his place, and changed his name to Sidkiyahu. Sidkiyahu was 21 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Yirmiyahu of Libnah. And he did evil in the eyes of Jehovah, according to all that Jehoiakim did. For this took place in Jerusalem and Yehudah, because of the displeasure of Jehovah, until he had cast them out from his presence. And Sidkiyahu rebelled against the sovereign of Babel. And it came to be in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th new moon, on the 10th of the new moon, that Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, and all his army came against Jerusalem, and encamped against it, and they built a siege wall against it all around. And the city was besieged until the 11th year of sovereign Sidkiyahu. By the 9th of the new moon, the scarcity of food had become so severe in the city that there was no food for the people of the land. Then the city wall was breached, and all the men of battle fled at night by way of the gate between 2 walls, which was by the sovereign's garden, even though the Kasdim were still encamped all around against the city. And the sovereign went by way of the desert plain. And the army of the Kasdim pursued the sovereign, and overtook him in the desert plains of Jericho, and all his army was scattered from him. And they seized the sovereign, and brought him up to the sovereign of Babel at Riblah, and they pronounced sentence on him. And they slew the sons of Sidkiyahu before his eyes, and put out the eyes of Sidkiyahu, and bound him with bronze shackles, and took him to Babel. And in the 5th new moon, on the 7th of the new moon, which was the 19th year of sovereign Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, Nebuzaradan, the chief of the guard, a servant of the sovereign of Babel, came to Jerusalem. And he burned the house of Jehovah and the house of the sovereign, and all the houses of Jerusalem, even every great house he burned with fire. And all the army of Kasdim who were with the chief of the guard broke down the walls of Jerusalem all around. And Nebuzaradan, the chief of the guard, took into exile the rest of the people who were left in the city, and the deserters who deserted to the sovereign of Babel, with the rest of the multitude. But the chief of the guard left some of the poor of the land as vine dressers and farmers. And the bronze columns that were in the house of Jehovah, and the stands and the bronze sea that were in the house of Jehovah, the Kasdim broke in pieces, and took their bronze away to Babel. And they took the pots and the shovels and the snuffers and the ladles, and all the bronze utensils the priest used in the service. And the chief of the guard took the fire holders and the basins, which were of solid gold and solid silver. The bronze of all these utensils was beyond measure, the 2 columns, the 1 sea, and the stands which Shlomo had made for the house of Jehovah. The height of 1 column was 18 cubits, and the capital on it was of bronze, and the height of the capital was 3 cubits, and the network and pomegranates all around the capital were all of bronze, and the 2nd column was the same with a network. And the chief of the guard took Seraiah, the chief priest, and Sephanyahu, the 2nd priest, and the 3 doorkeepers. And out of the city he took a certain eunuch who was appointed over the men of battle, and 5 men of those who saw the sovereign's face, who were found in the city, and the chief scribe of the army who mustered the people of the land, and 60 men of the people of the land who were found in the city. And Nebuzaradan, the chief of the guard, took them and made them go to the sovereign of Babel at Riblah. And the sovereign of Babel struck them and put them to death at Riblah, in the land of Hamath. So he exiled Yehudah from its own land. And he appointed Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, over the people who were left in the land of Yehudah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, had left. And all the commanders of the armies, and they and their men, heard that the sovereign of Babel had appointed Gedaliah, and they came to Gedaliah at Mitzpah, even Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, and Johanan, son of Kareah, and Seraiah, son of Tahumeth, and the Netophathite, and Azanyahu, the son of Akathite, they and their men. And Gedaliah swore to them and their men, and said to them, Do not be afraid of the servants of the Kasdim. Dwell in the land and serve the sovereign of Babel, and let it be well with you. And in the 7th new moon it came to be that Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, son of Elishama, of the seed of the rain, came with 10 men and struck Gedaliah, that he died, and the Yehudim and the Kasdim, who were with him at Mitzpah. And all the people rose up, small and great, and the commanders of the armies, and went to Mizraim, for they were afraid of the Kasdim. And it came to be in the 37th year of the exile of Jehoiakim, sovereign of Yehudah, in the 12th new moon, on the 27th of the new moon, that Evil Merodach, sovereign of Babel, in the year that he began to reign, released Joachim, sovereign of Yehuda, from prison, and spoke kindly to him, and set his throne above the throne of the sovereigns who were with him in Babel, and changed his prison garments, and he ate bread continually before the sovereign all the days of his life. And all his allowance, a continual allowance, was given to him from the sovereign, a quota for each day, all the days of his life.